Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Teramoto. I'm a senior trust officer with BECU Trust Services, and I am joined today by Neil Archibald, the head counsel for Members Trust Company, BECU's partner for providing trust services to our members. Our session is titled Aligning Your Retirement Assets and Your Estate Plan. So if you're looking for a different session or topic, use those buttons down below me and find the topic that you might be looking for. We will be sure to include some time for Q&A at the end of our session, so I encourage you, please submit those questions via the chat on the right side of the page. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. So, Mike, thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for being part of this.
Great. So Neil, we've heard a lot about estate planning, the importance of planning ahead and planning for incapacity. So can you tell us a little bit about what prompted Members Trust Company to come up with this flexible solution for estate planning, kind of lay the groundwork, if you would?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of step back and, see the big picture. We've all heard about the asset transfer that's occurring with the great wealth transfer, as it's been called. And so we know that there's a lot of legacy planning and legacy assets transferring from one generation to the next. But when you combine that with the fact that 60% of people don't have a documented plan like a will or trust, and yet 77% of people tell you in surveys that they know they need a plan, you've got this real big gap that tells you something needs to be done, but unfortunately, there's a lot of space for things to go.
There's a lot of people that don't have their plan in place, and it's just not something that reaches the top of the priority list. There's always something more fun to do.
That's absolutely right. And we know it's easy, like you said, to kick the can down the road. But at the end of the day, planning is really about considering our loved ones, right? And and when you think about planning, the single largest asset that the average person has, right? Broadly, the middle class, is your IRA. It's the single largest asset. And so having a plan for your IRA that really speaks to your life situation is a fundamental aspect of planning. So knowing that, and knowing that some of the tax deferred growth opportunities that we've become accustomed to with IRAs changed in 2019, we felt there needed to be a solution to that.
Right. Absolutely. So Neil, you referenced that dilution of tax deferred growth opportunities. So I'm assuming safely that you're referring to the Secure Act. That's the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act.
So. Yeah, and I just have to tell you, I'm glad that you said that and not me. I just call it the Secure Act. But you're absolutely correct. The Secure Act has had a significant impact on planning. And so maybe it might be helpful, Mike, before we talk about the Secure Act, just to create a baseline, why don't you tell us what we've been used to before the Secure Act?
Sure, absolutely. So the one of the most important features of an IRA is tax deferred growth, right? Money typically goes into an IRA, whether it's through a 401k or a profit sharing plan, on a pre-tax basis. And while it's then inside that plan, whether it's the 401k or the profit sharing or the IRA, it grows tax deferred, right? All the income and gains are not taxed at that time.
Absolutely. And the key thing here is that you've got that tax deferred growth. And in fact, you can have it for more than one lifetime. So that's a really important point.
That's right.
And let me just get this really quick.
Uh-oh. Looks like we lost Neil. Okay. You did. Absolutely. So the other things that we know about the environment before the Secure Act was talking about the I'm sorry, required distributions would start at age 70 and a half, right? And the last thing is the stretch out. Okay. At the death of an IRA owner, uh, a beneficiary or somebody that inherits an IRA, they would typically be eligible to take distributions for that from that IRA for their remaining life expectancy. So somebody that might be about 50 years old and inherits an IRA, they would be able to take distributions for maybe 30, 35 years or so. Okay, so that's the environment that we knew before the Secure Act. Okay, so then along comes the Secure Act. Neil mentioned it was passed in December of 2019, became effective January of last year. And the Secure Act really did change the landscape, right? It had a few good changes in it. Some of the things that it did was that he's coming back. Okay, but the Secure Act did some good things, right? It changed the required age for distributions. It used to be 70 and a half, and now it's changed to 72. And that's a good thing as people are living and longer by deferring the age that they need to start taking distributions by 18 months. It can help make an IRA last longer. Welcome back, Neil.
Yeah, thank you. Apologize for the technical difficulty. I think there was an issue with the connection, so hopefully it will remain stable, and apologize to everyone watching.
Excellent. So we're just talking about some of the good changes about the Secure Act. And the next thing is that contributions used to be capped at age 70 and a half. And because of the Secure Act, those contributions can now be made indefinitely as long as the IRA owner has earned income.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. As people are working longer, right? Well into their 70s, that it gives those individuals a chance to continue to take advantage of this tax deferred growth opportunities.
And certainly those are positives, and recognition of the changing demographics that's happening in a country. And I think it's always great. Start with the positive. So let's get into where are the limitations? What are the changes? What's seismic here?
Sure. So the biggest thing is that required distributions where a beneficiary used to be able to stretch those over their remaining expected life, that's been changed unless you fit into one of 5 various categories that they call eligible designated beneficiaries, right?
Yeah. So if you're a surviving spouse of the IRA owner, you get to keep the old rules, right?
That makes sense. That's good.
Yeah. So that's great. If you are a minor child of the IRA owner, you also get to keep those rules with the proviso, right, Mike?
Absolutely. So, yep, it's only up until that age of majority. So for most people, that's going to be the age of 18. And once that minor child becomes the age of majority, they then become subject to that 10-year rule.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear, that's only for children, direct children of that IRA owner. It doesn't apply to grandchildren or somebody else's children.
Exactly. And then you have a beneficiary with special needs, which, that makes a lot of sense because, as we know, if a individual that is receiving benefits because of a disability and they receive an IRA inheritance, it could disqualify them. And I think many of us are aware, the number one reason for bankruptcy in the United States is our medical expenses. And so you want to make sure that you protect those because they're sacrosanct.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have actually the Flex IRA product that the Members Trust Company came up with actually has another alternative solution for those that have special needs, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. And then you have beneficiaries with chronic illness. And now that's a statutory definition. So just to be clear, you'd have to go back and at least get some guidance on, what constitutes chronic. It's not simply, chronic pain or even something that we may colloquially think of as chronic. But certainly those with a chronic illness, continue to have that stretch out opportunity. And then finally, beneficiaries that are no more than 10 years younger than the IRA owner.
Right, and people might kind of scratch their head. Well, who would that apply to? Siblings of an IRA owner, right? Brothers and sisters would be possible candidates. Other people might be a significant other of an IRA owner, someone
Right.
that they never got married. They're somewhat close in age. That person can get the benefit of the stretch out for their remaining life expectancy.
Exactly. And so what does this mean practically for people? Really, it means that there's less flexibility because you will receive more income for the majority of people that don't fall into those 5 categories. And to be clear, the majority of people do not fall into those 5 categories, right, Mike?
That's right.
And so, if you're not in those 5 categories, that means you get accelerated income much faster. And when you receive that income, you're receiving it as ordinary income. So it's raising your tax bracket. So if you have, the traditional IRA, a person can work for 30, 40 years and contribute, if they're fortunate enough to have a 401k and continue to contribute to it. And then depending upon which tax bracket, you fall into with the distribution, it could really bump you up.
That's right. Yeah, having to deplete the IRA within that 10-year period, which is what the Secure Act is going to do for a majority of these beneficiaries.
Exactly. And something I had mentioned before the internet connection broke was just the whole concept of the stretch over the second life. And so you had your IRA owner who's growing their their wealth tax deferred, right, tax free inside of that IRA shell. Mm-hmm. Then it gets passed down, and then that individual has the option under the old rules to extend it out again over their life, and that really contributes to building wealth. And now that's been limited in many cases.
Right. Absolutely. So. Yeah, so those are some of the things about the Secure Act and some of the issues or maybe problems that it created, but Members Trust came up with a solution. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to sum it up. Essentially, you've got some key things. Incapacity is important, because we all know that we share the same fate, right? We're all gonna die at some point, but we don't know exactly the path there. And so having a plan for incapacity is critical, right? Any good plan plans for the unknown in that respect, and so incapacity is one of them.
Right. So if an IRA owner becomes incapacitated, typically for most IRAs, they are what's structured as a custody IRA, and that means they need to have an agent under a durable power of attorney that could take over and make decisions for that IRA. And if not, there would need to be a process to go to court and have a guardian assigned.
That's exactly right. And in an interim, the active management in the account would cease. And so with the Flex IRA, you have incapacity language built directly into it. So you can actually have continued management during incapacity, which I think is critical.
Right. And specifically that allows the trustee, in this case BECU Trust Services, could take over making decisions, including making distributions for that IRA owner's health, maybe medical bills, nursing home bills, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. And then when you think about a standard IRA, you have the IRA that many of you know. It says, name your Benny, put their date of birth, put their social security number, and put down their percentage. And all percentages must match up to 100%. And, that's your standard. But again, given the importance of what the IRA is to most people's overall wealth, having some additional components are important. And that's really where you have protected access and a flex trust, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, continue.
Okay. So you have the standard, and I think what's important to note is that the standard places the choice at the beneficiary level, right? The beneficiary gets to choose what they want to do with this inheritance. They can decide to take it as a lump sum, and that's fine. But then, of course, you have a dilution of the principal because some of that's going to go away to the taxing authority, right? Because it's likely to push it up into a different tax bracket. So, for example, if you have $1 million IRA, you're going to push someone up into the highest tax bracket.
Ouch.
Yeah, that is an ouch, right? And I suspect that if someone has patiently saved throughout their life, they probably prefer that their Benny perhaps make a different choice.
Yeah, absolutely. An IRA typically represents a lifetime of hard work and savings. And how many IRA owners want to see that lifetime savings just blown by their beneficiary? I guess they wouldn't be able to stick around to see it, but to know that could happen. Yeah.
And I think it's uncomfortable. And then the other option that the Benny has is to stretch it out. Now, if they fall into one of those 5 categories, then they can stretch it out over their lifetime. But since the majority of beneficiaries don't, they can only stretch it out over 10 years. So again, if you have just to use by example for easy math, you have $1 million IRA, that's $100,000 in additional income that will hit your Benny every year. And so that's your standard option, the one that you would get normally pretty much anywhere. But when you move to the protected access option, it shifts the choice from the Benny to the IRA owner. And essentially the IRA owner can say, okay, I'll just use an example. I have a son, his name is Jake. Jake is a wonderful kid and love him very much, but boy, does he play hard. And I'm a little worried if he gets all the money, but I still want him to get the money because he's my beneficiary. So how do I give him the money without giving him the money? Well, you put in kind of controls around how the money gets to him. And in this case, you basically have the choice of giving them money for health, education, maintenance, and support, right? And if it is a standard IRA, if it's a standard Benny, the ones that fall under those 5 categories and they are under the old lifetime rules, they would still continue to get the RMD. But then on top of that, there'd be additional principal invasion for health, education, maintenance, and support, right? And so it's a sieve. It allows for them to benefit from the inheritance without necessarily risking rapid depletion of principal. Okay, so that's an option. For an eligible designated beneficiary, that's the group that most people fall into, and again, is subject to that 10-year limitation. You have that same choice over that 10-year period, right? And so what you're doing is you're preventing that Benny from saying, okay, I want to take it all at once.
Yeah, so that gives the IRA owner the ability to kind of protect that lifetime bucket of savings and make sure that it lasts for their beneficiary.
Absolutely. And then the last option is a built-in trust inside of your IRA. So it's a standardized trust sitting inside your IRA, and you would elect it on your beneficiary election form. And the way that it works is it's what you call an accumulation trust. The trust actually becomes the beneficiary, but I will say it's the Neil Archibald Trust for the benefit of Jake, my son. And then Jake will get access to those funds. The funds will pay into this trust over the 10-year period. And then they can continue to be held for as long as needed up to lifetime for sprinkle or spray distributions based on health, education, maintenance, and support standard. And what's great is that we can actually manage kind of the tax back and forth. So we can keep the money growing in the IRA for that 10-year period, so it continues to grow tax-free while making distributions out to the bennies, and then it's taxed at the Benny tax rate. So it's actually a very flexible tool. And we have a standard inheritance protection trust, Michael, which is great for creditors, right?
Sure.
Um, we have a special needs trust, and we have a charitable remainder trust.
So there's three different trust options. That sounds complicated.
It does, and fortunately, no one has to choose all three at the same time. So I mean, it basically depends upon your needs, right? And so, for example, again, if we use the example of Jake is financially irresponsible, and so because Jake is financially responsible but well-meaning, I want to protect him as against himself, essentially. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to use an inheritance protection trust. And that way he will be able to benefit from it over his lifetime without necessarily depleting it because of a poor choice. If Jake is a special needs individual, then I want to preserve his benefits. I don't want to put that at risk. So then I make a special needs trust the beneficiary, and it would just be the special needs trust for Jake. And then Jake would get access to the money that way to supplement state care as opposed to supplant. And then finally, if you have charitable intent, if you have other assets elsewhere, perhaps you do not have an immediate descendant in your line, you can actually transfer the money over into a charitable remainder trust, and it will continue to grow tax deferred, just like the IRA. So you're keeping that same tax status. And meanwhile, you can name a Benny to receive those charitable proceeds after a period of 20 years. And in the interim, somebody can get a percentage stream of income.
So 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 let me understand. With a charitable remainder trust, you select a beneficiary. That person can receive distributions
Yeah,
over the next 20 years. And then at the end of the 20-year period, whatever's left in that trust gets paid out to a charitable entity.
that is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. And really, the three of them give a lot of flexibility, but that's three at the flex trust option level, right? And then you've got the standard option and a protected access option. And really, the thing that you want to walk away with, flexibility, right? Everyone has different needs in their life, different fact specific situations. And so you want to have a product that actually grows with you. And what I mean by that is you may come in today and say, I just need a standard. But then several years down the road, maybe your life situation changes, as happens for all of us. Maybe there's a new birth in the family, something to celebrate, but also plan for. Maybe there is a passing in the family. Okay. Again, that's a planning event. Maybe there's simply a change of heart. And you decide, well, you know, Jake was great, but somewhere along the way, he is not exhibiting the maturity. He's not getting there yet. I'm a little concerned. Maybe I was giving him the standard option, but now I want to change. And what you do is you go back to your original beneficiary designation form and you check another box and you sign. And now you've activated a protected access option.
Mhm.
And you would do the same if you wanted to go up to the flex trust option. So, really, that's why we call it a flex IRA, because of the flexible nature of the options. And it really just depends upon what a person wants and when they may want it.
Right. Well, it sounds like this this tool might be just a real good solution for a lot of families that are in a lot of different situations. Beneficiaries with special needs, irresponsible, less than responsible beneficiaries, those that have charitable intent. Um, Sounds like a pretty good choice.
Uh, you know, um, I think we have, at least I feel it, that we have an obligation to provide choices, right,
Mhm.
to our members, and I think that's what this does. Again, as you said, it touches on incapacity, it touches on tax management, on asset protection, protections from creditors. For those with benefits, they can receive the benefit of the IRA without risking those benefits. And then just the overall flexibility and as well as charitable intent. I think it covers a lot of territory. And certainly for those probably listening, some of this may be doing this because it's like packing a lot into a short period of time. And, I would encourage people to reach out to BECU Trust Services because I do recognize that there's a lot here, but that means that's an opportunity for a conversation to figure out, what part of this works best for you.
Hey, Neil, one of the solutions that I think this can really be a great fit for is blended families. Blended families nowadays are just becoming more and more common, where individuals are coming together later in life. They have children from prior marriages. How can this Flex IRA product be a good solution for those families?
Absolutely. So, and to your point, your blended families are really more the norm than not. And so you may have children from a first, children from a second, and you may be worried about disinheritance. And, under the standard IRA, you would leave it to your spouse, and your spouse has the ability to actually redesignate it. They can roll it over into their name and actually change the bennies. But with a Flex IRA, you can actually say, okay, I want my spouse to have their RMD. I want them to have access to principal. But then upon their passing, I want it to go to the beneficiaries that I have named. And so you really get to provide for the one that you love and the ones that, you also love and feel responsible for. So.
Right. Okay. So an IRA owner can easily use this to provide protection for their current spouse, as well as to protect their children from the first marriage, and so that the evil step parent can't disinherit those stepchildren.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we know that blended households are a work of art, and it doesn't just happen, right? And oftentimes there's one person, it could be the dad or the mom, that really is kind of the binder. And when perhaps, they leave the scene because of a passing, there are stressors on the family. And sometimes it brings things, to bear. And we've all heard, even seen it on comedies where, a family's at a wake and all of a sudden they have a falling out and things go off in a different direction. That's real. It happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's neat. And so this Flex IRA product provides protection for incapacity, provides protection for allowing the deferral of taxes to continue for a few years at least. Asset protection provides us special needs trust options for those beneficiaries that qualify for government benefits. And really the bottom line is it sounds like it's pretty flexible.
Yeah, I think so. I think the lady here, the yoga person, would agree. I tried to put a good graphic here, but hopefully it gets the point across.
Right. Okay. Well, great. So with that, I think we're ready to see if there's some questions from the audience. Gloria, are you there? There you are.
I'm
Hi,
here.
Gloria. Yeah, this is
Hello.
Gloria Dixon. She's our room host, and let's see if Gloria has any questions that have come in for us.
We do. So we have a question from Deborah. She has a question on pensions. Lump or monthly annuity?
Wow, good question. From a purely financial perspective, the calculations are the same. The insurance companies that handle those annuities, they know on average what somebody's life expectancy is, and from the life insurance or the pension perspective, what they're going to pay out to a large number of people is going to be the same amount. So really, that's an individual question. There's a lot of factors that an individual should consider in making that decision, lump sum or the monthly annuity. And so that's not something that we can really answer in a forum like this.
Yeah, and I'll just add that that's definitely one for I think a deeper conversation, understanding the specific facts, because again, health matters, right? What do you want to do with the money. Some people don't want to wait and they have a lot of plans. Some people have poor health and have other types of considerations. And so, those are just a few of the things you'd have to keep into account when making a decision about whether or not to do an annuity or a lump sum.
We have another question from Amy. She wants to know, is a Flex IRA offered by all investment companies?
No, it is not. In fact, to our knowledge, the Flex IRA only exists through BECU Trust Services. So kudos to BECU and Members Trust for creating it.
I have another question from Linda. Is an inherited IRA taxed?
Well, you want to take that, Mike?
Sure. An inherited IRA could be taxed, and it really depends on the nature of the IRA. This Flex IRA product that we've been discussing can be used both for a traditional IRA, or rollover IRA, or a Roth IRA. So to the extent that there are Roth IRA assets that are part of this Flex IRA, those assets come out of the IRA tax-free. So a Roth IRA is a great solution for those people that are naming a trust as the beneficiary of the IRA. So it depends.
And one additional question from Beth. Can I have the RDS pay the trust and the trust pay for life insurance?
Can the RD?
Maybe RMD,
RDS.
required minimum distribution, maybe?
Yeah, I think that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yes. Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. She said, can I have the RDS, and then maybe the RMD, pay the trust and the trust pay for life insurance?
Well, in order for the RMD, in order for an IRA to pay RMD directly to the trust would be the Benny. If it was the RMD going to an individual and then to a trust, that would be inefficient in part for taxes, because it would, whatever money comes out goes into a tax environment to those that receive it, and then they turn around and put it into a trust, and then the trust has its own tax shell. So it wouldn't be efficient to do it that way. But if you made the trust the beneficiary and then you paid it directly in, you could do that.
Those are the only questions in the chat right now, Mike.
Okay, well, I have a couple questions that I think could be common for a lot of the audience members out there. Neil, how can this Flex IRA be a good solution for somebody that has maybe multiple children? Some are responsible, right? And some less than responsible.
Sure. I don't know how many of you have siblings. I love my siblings, and we were all very different, and in many positive ways. And one of the things that I think when you're planning, it's important to be honest about what your goals are, right? Be clear about that. And also be honest about who's going to receive your assets, because the ultimate goal is to help enhance their life. And in order to do that, you've really got to just have a clear assessment of who's receiving the money and how they're going to use it. And so if you have multiple family members receiving it, you can make an individual election for each of those bennies, as we've talked about. In one case, you can say, Susie, you're eminently responsible. I know you're going to handle the money well. You get the money outright. I'm checking standard for you, Benny. But for John, I'm a little concerned, and I just feel like maybe you need some more time to mature. So I'm going to use protected access option, and we're going to we're going to pass it out to you based on the health, education, maintenance support standard. And then maybe you have a special needs child, and then you say, well, their portion, their percentage, I want it to go to a special needs trust. And so you can imagine all the different ways that you can use those different pieces. Each of them are at the beneficiary level.
I have a question that came through from Michael G. And you may have already answered this, but he wondered, is the Flex IRA a unique product to BECU Trust? And what would the generic name of this product be?
Sure.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So the product itself is unique to BECU Trust Services and Members Trust Company. It is a form of a trust deed IRA, but the features that Members Trust and BECU Trust Services have created as part of this product, the multiple trust options, the protected access option, the ability to provide for protection in incapacity, all those combined in this one easy to use document that can be easily be changed and customized for each individual client. That really is a product of BECU Trust Services.
No generic name there.
Let's see. So I have another question. Let's see. A lot of people already have estate planning documents. How does this Flex IRA affect what other estate planning documents that they might have?
Sure. The answer is it depends. What's important to note is that if you have an existing estate planning document, we can actually incorporate that into this and make it a beneficiary of your IRA or Flex IRA. So it doesn't have to be our standardized form. The key for us as a company is understanding the terms of that trust and making sure that we can properly administer it more than anything. So you can integrate what you already have with this Flex IRA, but if you don't have anything, or perhaps you have some things but not other things, you can use this trust to really help kind of round out your planning.
Nice. Neil, how about somebody that already has an inherited IRA? Can this Flex IRA product be used for that situation?
It can. It can. Again, this is all about just updating a existing beneficiary designation, and so that's the key thing.
Nice. Okay. What about size limits? Is there a minimum size for a Flex IRA?
Yeah. It's so interesting because when you go out there in the in the financial services world and you look at account minimums, most times when you get into specialized products, you're talking $1 million plus before someone's really going to take a look at it. We're talking 250,000. To really, I think, benefit from the access that this document provides in terms of flexibility.
Okay. Well, great. Gloria, are there any other questions from the audience?
None additional at this time.
Well, I'll say this, Mike. It is always good talking with you. I always enjoy kind of our interaction, and just thankful to everyone that took the time out of their day to listen in and be a part of this. And please reach out with additional questions. I know I'm a little slow on the uptake, so I often don't think of questions until after the fact. And so certainly, if you do have additional questions, reach out to Mike and the BECU Trust Services team. They're a great crew, and they're here to help plan your legacy and work with you to help on executing it.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks, Neil. So as Neil said, if we didn't get a chance to answer a question, you think of one later, please, we encourage you to send that in. You would want to send that question to communityrelations@becu.org. Again, that's communityrelations@becu.org. There is a survey down below at the bottom of this page. So if you'd scroll down and take a moment to complete that survey, we would appreciate that. So I believe that concludes this breakout sessions for tonight. Please join us on the homepage and for our closing keynote panel That should be starting in about 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
This is the one place where you can grow, where you can be yourself, you can be real. You don't have to be a cookie cutter employee, and it advances you. It advances you emotionally, physically, and it's just an awesome place to be.
There are so many things I enjoy about working at BECU. I think the overall theme is really people helping people. And what that means to me, it allows me to be myself, come to work every day, be very real with people, especially now more than ever in their time of need. I really want, it allows me to be human.
I love what I do. I love the company I work for. I love helping members. I love just helping people.
Yeah, I do feel satisfied knowing that my actions throughout the day help the members with any of their financial needs.
I just love making them feel help, in everything what they need. I just love seeing those smile that, oh, thank you for helping me. That makes me feel so accomplished.
Helping members, it's a joy. I mean, it's making a difference in somebody's life, in their financial life, that brings a lot of pleasure to me, and also helping my colleagues,
I really like the attitude of everyone here, just the general positive feeling that I get from working with all the different people at BECU.
What made me proud to work at BECU is the care that I receive, as much as the care that I give out.
Especially now in this environment, members need us now more than ever. And watching my large staff interact with members on a variety of needs on a day-to-day basis really brings me joy, knowing that we're helping them in their times of need.
It's that connection with the community, both that respect that I think BECU carries within this region and the longevity of it. Just to think about how many people in our community have been able to buy homes and save up for retirement and drive cool cars and meet financial goals because of our commitment to the community.
But in particular is being able to partake in someone's journey. And my quote has always been to be but a grain of sand in someone's journey. I have done my part. People helping people is what we stand for.